Your quiet obedience today created a powerful shift in the spiritual realm, even though it may have felt subtle, routine, or unnoticed in the physical world. There are moments in a chosen one's life when God is not looking at grand gestures, loud declarations, or dramatic breakthroughs. Instead, He is watching the small, everyday decisions that reveal the true posture of your heart. Today was one of those days. You moved with a quiet strength, a humble resolve, and a deep inner conviction that didn't need applause or validation. You made choices that aligned with who you are spiritually, not who the world expects you to be. Heaven pays attention to those moments more than you realize. Your obedience wasn't loud, but it was sincere. It wasn't perfect, but it was pure. And in the kingdom of God, what is pure carries more weight than what is impressive. There were battles today that only you and God know about. You fought back thoughts that tried to weaken your spirit, temptations that tried to pull you off your path, and discouragement that tried to slow you down. You kept going even when you didn't feel strong. You showed patience with someone who didn't deserve it. You chose forgiveness instead of holding on to silent bitterness. You stayed kind even while your heart was weary. You avoided something you knew would drain your spirit. You walked away from an argument that would have taken you out of your character. You kept your integrity when the easier choice would have been to compromise. These are the things heaven sees. These are the things that shift atmospheres. These are the choices that separate a chosen one from the crowd. Your obedience today wasn't about rules or religion. It came from your spirit instinctively remembering who you belong to. There is a purity in that kind of obedience, one that is rooted in love, reverence, and trust. You didn't follow God today because you were afraid of punishment or seeking a reward. You moved the way you did because your heart is aligned with Him in ways you sometimes underestimate. Even when you feel imperfect or unqualified, your spirit still knows how to choose what is right. That kind of obedience disrupts darkness. It silences spiritual attacks. It confuses enemies who expect you to respond from old wounds or old habits. The restraint you showed today, the peace you maintained, the self-control you displayed, they were not small. They were acts of spiritual maturity that sent a clear signal into the heavenly realm. There are angels assigned to your life who respond to moments like this. They move when you stay aligned. They protect when you choose obedience. They reinforce the path ahead when your heart remains steady. Your quiet obedience today activated movements behind the scenes that you cannot yet see. You might feel like nothing changed, but heaven shifted. A door you couldn't open by force began unlocking because your spirit pushed it with obedience instead of impatience. A blessing that was delayed began positioning itself because you proved you were ready for it. A cycle that once repeated in your life started breaking because you didn't respond in the way the enemy expected. God watches those moments carefully, because they reveal readiness more clearly than anything else. There were moments today when you had the opportunity to choose anger, but you chose silence. Moments when you could have chosen resentment, but you chose surrender. Moments when you could have spiraled into fear, but you chose to breathe and trust. This is the kind of obedience that shifts your atmosphere, your future, and your spiritual authority. Obedience doesn't always look like big leaps of faith. Sometimes it looks like responding with grace when your emotions are loud. Sometimes it looks like walking away from things you once entertained. Sometimes it looks like remaining calm in moments that once triggered you. Sometimes it looks like saying nothing when you know your words would only add fuel to the fire. Those choices carry power. They prove that your character is being shaped and your spirit is being strengthened. Every time you choose obedience in private, God rewards you in ways that eventually become visible. Today you planted seeds without realizing it. Seeds of discipline, seeds of humility, seeds of spiritual clarity. God saw all of it. Heaven recorded all of it. Your obedience speaks louder in the spiritual world than your words ever could. Even when you feel unseen, God is watching and responding. Every quiet choice you made today is building something bigger than you think. Heaven celebrated the hidden sacrifices and pure intentions behind your actions, the ones no one else noticed, acknowledged, or even knew you had made. There is a kind of holiness in the things you do quietly, without expecting thanks or recognition. Those moments are seen in the spiritual realm with far more clarity than you might imagine. Today you operated from a place of sincerity, from a place within you that seeks to honor God more than impress people. You carried yourself with humility, moved with compassion, and acted from a purity that is rare in a world driven by self-interest. Heaven responds to that kind of heart. Angels take note of intentions that are clean and choices made out of love rather than ego. There are rewards tied to these unseen decisions because they reveal who you are when no one is watching. There were things you gave up today: time, energy, emotional strength just to keep someone else comfortable, safe, or encouraged. You didn't talk about it, but God saw the internal tug of war you fought in order to choose generosity over selfishness. You stepped back when you could have demanded credit. You stayed gentle when you could have reacted harshly. You let someone else shine when you deserved appreciation too. These moments of sacrifice ripple through the spiritual atmosphere. They break cycles that once harmed you. They soften the hearts of others. They align your life with blessings that require emotional maturity to handle. Heaven celebrates those decisions because they are markers of spiritual growth. You might have carried a burden today that wasn't yours, simply because someone else needed help, guidance, or comfort. You may have listened to someone else's pain while you carried your own silently. You may have encouraged someone even though no one encouraged you. You may have prayed for someone who would never know your name was lifted for them. These quiet acts of love are the reason heaven rejoices over you. They show that you are becoming more aligned with the heart of God, who gives without announcing it, heals without demanding repayment, and loves without conditions. What you did today mirrored that nature in ways you did not realize. Your intentions today mattered more than your actions. In the spiritual realm, intention carries weight. Intention reveals whether an act is rooted in pride or purity, in performance or purpose. Your intentions were clean, and that is why your spirit gained strength without you even noticing. Heaven celebrates purity of heart because it is rare, powerful, and dangerous to darkness. When your intentions are aligned with God, your life begins to attract favor in ways that seem effortless. Opportunities open. Connections shift. Battles weaken. Not because you forced anything, but because your heart posture positioned you correctly. There were temptations today to do things for applause, validation, or ego, but you didn't fall into that trap. You chose authenticity over performance. You chose meaning over image. You chose depth over appearance. In a world obsessed with being seen, you chose to remain sincere. That choice is a spiritual victory. Heaven rejoices when you stay true to who God is shaping you to be, even when it costs you attention or praise. You may feel like no one appreciated what you did today, but heaven applauded. The unseen realm responded. The divine recognized the purity in your motives. You may have walked away from situations today that would have drained your spirit or compromised your integrity. Walking away is also a sacrifice. Saying nothing when your pride wants to defend itself is a sacrifice. Remaining humble when you have every reason to prove a point is a sacrifice. These sacrifices are not dramatic, but they are deeply valued in the eyes of God. Your willingness to choose peace over pride and gentleness over ego brought joy to heaven. These choices create spiritual stability, and they prepare you for blessings that cannot coexist with arrogance or impulsiveness. There were moments today when you forgave someone silently, not because they apologized, but because your heart refused to carry bitterness. Heaven celebrates that. Forgiveness is one of the highest forms of spiritual obedience, and when you do it from a place of sincerity, you break chains that have held generations captive. Your forgiveness today released something in the spiritual realm. It lifted weight off your shoulders, even if you haven't felt the release yet. God sees the forgiveness you forced yourself to give, even when it was painful. Heaven honors that kind of emotional courage. There were choices you made today that protected your spirit. You avoided certain conversations, resisted certain temptations, and turned away from familiar patterns. These decisions were not small. They were spiritual milestones. Heaven rejoices when you choose growth over comfort. Every time you correct your path, even in subtle ways, the spiritual realm reacts. Angels rejoice because it means you are becoming more aligned, more disciplined, more aware of your calling. Your hidden sacrifices today revealed a version of you that is stronger, wiser, and more spiritually grounded than you realize. You may not feel like what you did today changed anything, but heaven knows better. Heaven celebrates things you think are insignificant. Heaven honors the seeds you plant without expecting a harvest. Heaven responds to the love you give without broadcasting it. The sacrifices you made today did not go unnoticed. They were felt powerfully in the unseen realm, and their impact is already unfolding in ways your eyes have not yet perceived. God is preparing a divine response to the faithfulness you showed today, and it begins with the recognition that your small, consistent acts of obedience have a much greater impact than you realize. Every choice you made, every word you spoke, every silent moment of endurance, has positioned you for a spiritual breakthrough. The faithfulness you displayed today, even when no one noticed or applauded, is a currency in the spiritual realm that God honors. He is watching the way you handled trials, the way you carried your burdens, and the way you stayed true to your convictions. Your perseverance has not been in vain. The divine realm records every moment of your obedience, and every moment is setting the stage for a response that is both precise and abundant. What you did today is sowing seeds that will blossom into blessings, protection, and favor that are far beyond what you could orchestrate on your own. Your faithfulness today wasn't just about doing the right thing, it was about aligning your heart with God's will. There were moments when it would have been easier to give up, to react in anger, or to choose self-interest over spiritual alignment, but you resisted those urges. Each time you chose faith over fear, patience over frustration, and love over resentment, you were strengthening your spiritual foundation. God takes note of the moments when you choose righteousness, not because it's convenient, but because your spirit knows it is the right path. Your faithfulness builds trust between you and God, a trust that He uses to release greater levels of favor, guidance, and intervention in your life. Today's decisions, though they may have seemed ordinary, are part of a larger divine strategy that is unfolding for you. There are spiritual forces at work that respond to faithfulness. Angels are dispatched to guide, protect, and accelerate the promises of God into your life because of the steadfastness you have demonstrated. Your loyalty to integrity, your refusal to compromise, and your willingness to act according to God's principles have created openings in the spiritual realm. These openings invite blessings, divine connections, and favorable circumstances that are tailored specifically to your path. The faithfulness you've shown is like a key unlocking doors that were previously closed. It is a signal to heaven that you are ready to receive more than you have ever imagined. Each act of obedience, patience, and perseverance compounds to create a momentum that is unstoppable in the spiritual world. Faithfulness also transforms the unseen environment around you. Every positive choice you made today contributes to a shift in energy, both in your personal life and in the lives of those connected to you. Your commitment to doing what is right, even when challenging, brings balance, clarity, and order to situations that might have otherwise been chaotic. Your influence stretches beyond what your eyes can see. People may not recognize the effects immediately, but the ripple effect of your faithful actions today will eventually manifest in tangible ways. Relationships, opportunities, and circumstances are all being subtly aligned by your consistent devotion to righteousness. God is orchestrating these shifts because your faithfulness has proven that you are prepared to handle His favor responsibly. Your faithfulness also serves as a testimony. Even if it feels private, the spiritual realm witnesses it, and it becomes a reference point for future blessings. The consistency of your character, the perseverance in the face of adversity, and the integrity of your actions form a foundation upon which God can build. Today's choices are not isolated, they are cumulative. They demonstrate that you can be trusted with larger assignments, greater wisdom, and more significant responsibilities. God rewards faithfulness because it indicates readiness. Readiness to receive, readiness to lead, and readiness to carry out His will in ways that will impact not just your life, but the lives of many others. Each faithful act you perform today is a step closer to that divine purpose being realized. Sometimes faithfulness requires waiting, endurance, and unseen effort. Today may have felt like a day of ordinary routines, challenges, or overlooked efforts, yet God sees the invisible labor of your spirit. The quiet prayers, the restraint from reactive emotions, the integrity maintained in difficult situations, all of these constitute acts of faithfulness that heaven celebrates. Every time you chose the higher path, even when no one else would have, you set yourself apart as someone whom God can rely on. This reliability opens the door for supernatural interventions and blessings that are already being aligned to meet you. The divine response you will experience is not arbitrary, it is precise, proportionate, and perfectly timed according to God's wisdom. Your faithfulness today also acts as a magnet for God's favor. Opportunities that seemed delayed or impossible may now begin to move in your direction. Doors that were once closed may start to open. Solutions to challenges that appeared insurmountable may become clear. God's delight in your actions today ensures that His hand is working on your behalf. The joy He feels over your obedience transforms your circumstances, paving the way for breakthroughs, restoration, and fulfillment of promises that were previously held in waiting. What you planted in faith today is being cultivated for a harvest that will surpass your expectations. You are a chosen vessel, and your faithful actions today are a reflection of your alignment with God's plan. Each step you took, each decision made with integrity, and each act of perseverance is contributing to a larger story that heaven is orchestrating on your behalf. The divine response is inevitable, not because of chance, but because God honors faithfulness, and you have proven yourself faithful. The universe itself is aligning in accordance with the choices you made, and blessings are already being positioned in ways that will manifest at the perfect time. Your actions today are a reminder that God is not only aware of your efforts but is deeply delighted by them. You can rest in the assurance that the faithfulness you demonstrated today will not be overlooked or wasted. God's response is coming in forms that are tailored to your life and purpose. Be prepared for breakthroughs, unexpected favor, and divine connections that will confirm heaven's delight in your obedience. Your life is entering a season where what you sowed in faithfulness will be reaped in joy, abundance, and spiritual fulfillment. Everything you did today has contributed to this momentum, and the results will be evident in ways that will inspire gratitude, wonder, and awe. Your faithfulness today has set the stage for God's extraordinary response.